Police in Kenya fired tear gas and water cannon to disperse protesters in the capital. Demonstrators had gathered to mark the 35th anniversary of pro-democracy rallies. Police deployments have ramped up following last year's protests, which began over tax hikes but morphed into calls for the government to go. Police blocked major roads this Monday, which were leading into Nairobi, and most schools were shut in anticipation of possible trouble. For more on the story, we can go across to correspondent Olivia Bizot standing by in Nairobi. Olivia, good afternoon to you. What's the latest at this hour?
Hi, Delano. Yes, there had been a huge amount of calls for protests on social media ahead of this 7th of July, which historically has been a very important protest day in Kenya. But police have made it almost impossible to take to the streets this Monday. Most of the major roads leading to the centre of town, where the protests usually take place, were blocked this morning from a very early hour, and all motorbikes and cars were refused entry. It usually takes me about 5 minutes to get into town on a motorbike, but today I had to walk, so it took me almost an hour. And when I got there, the scenes were shocking. All of the shops were closed. The streets were deserted, and police were basically in every single street, armed with water cannon, armed with tear gas and whips, and even wooden sticks as well. Now, this protest day on Monday, the 7th of July, was expected to be a huge event, and tensions were already incredibly high on Sunday evening when armed men turned up at a press conference that was organised at the headquarters of Kenya's Human Rights Commission. They were holding a press conference at the time against police brutality because during the protests on June the 25th of this year, at least 19 people were killed. So police have been making it incredibly difficult to take to the streets. A lot of Kenyans I've spoken to said they're incredibly frustrated and angry that they haven't been able to express themselves in a democratic way. A lot of people have told me that it reminds them of the Moi era, which was an autocratic era in Kenya, where former President Moi ruled from 1978 to 2002.
Okay, so we're seeing a very heavy-handed police presence clearly on the ground in Nairobi. Last year, Olivia, we saw those demonstrations which started over tax hikes, and then they morphed into something larger. Authorities snuffed out those protests as well. What are people angry about?
Yes, that's right, Delano. Well, the protest movement initially began in June and July of last year, when tens of thousands of people took to the streets to protest against a hugely unpopular finance bill that would have increased Kenyans' taxes and raised the living costs of a lot of the population. But what began as protests against tax hikes eventually spiraled into wider demands. People wanted an end to corruption, they wanted an end to poor governance, and they wanted an end to police brutality, because in June and July of last year, at least 60 people were killed during those anti-government demonstrations. Those protests had fizzled out, but they were reignited just a few weeks ago when a blogger called Albert Ojwang was killed in police custody. He was critical of the government and of the police on social media, so he was then arrested, and the police initially said that he took his own life, but a post-mortem later revealed that he had actually been violently attacked while in police custody. And that revelation sparked outrage across the country, and people once again took to the streets, only to be met with another round of police brutality and police making it incredibly difficult to take to the streets. It's difficult to predict what's going to happen next in the coming days, weeks, and even months, but it's definitely sure that this frustration is not going to disappear overnight, because it is deeply rooted. But taking to the streets and mobilizing in Kenya today has become very dangerous. A lot of Kenyans want President William Ruto to go, or at least they don't want him to run for a second term, but he's already begun ramping up his campaign for the 2027 elections.